So, welcome to 2024, marking yet another great year for our Women Who Lead series. As we embark on our third year of this powerful program, I extend heartfelt gratitude to all of you who consistently join us each month, seeking inspiration, wisdom, and knowledge. And our show today fittingly sets the tone for January and the year. January, celebrated as Mentorship Month, and our esteemed guests epitomize not only trailblazers, but also serve as significant mentors to so many of us within the industry. I'm Teresa Palacio Smith, and I'm serving as Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for HomeServices of America and Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. And each month, I have the privilege of enjoying un cafecito with women who are recommended by so many of you. So these three women are recommendations that our audience has said, we want to see these three leaders on the show. And because the reason they've changed so many lives by the work that they've done and their commitment to empowering others. And today I have the privilege of hosting the Trailblazers. Each of these women has left an indelible mark on the industry and continue to impact others by their invaluable insights and remarkable contributions. So let me introduce the Trailblazers. By the way, each of these women have achieved so many awards and designations that I won't be able to mention all of them. But something new I'm doing this year is attaching their bios on our websites along with their credentials and ways to get a hold of them so you can actually be able to connect with them directly. So, starting with Jan Baker. Jan is Senior Vice President and also the Regional Vice President for the Northeast region of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Georgia Properties, where I began my career. And Jan holds a special place in my heart because she actually recruited me to the company many years ago when we were with Prudential. And I want to let you know that emphasizes the important role she's had in my life as a mentor. Jan has so many accolades to her name. She started the business in 1980 and within 4 years began managing an office. And in fact, that office, I believe, was the Prudential office that was on Holcomb Bridge, where I first met Jan. She's held numerous leadership roles in the industry in local, state, and national positions, including president of the local board and state board, Georgia Association of Realtors, along with the Women Council of Realtors president, which I didn't know, Jan, that you were president of the Women Council of Realtors. She's also an award winner from Realtor of the Year many times over, captain of industry, which I'm not familiar with that, so I'd love to hear more about that. She's a Hall of Famer, and I know the biggest honor, NAR's emeritus status. I'm so happy and proud to call you, Jan, one of my mentors, and happy to have you on the show. So welcome.
Thank you.
Pam O'Connor. Pam was the first woman to head a major residential real estate organization in 1985. She retired in 2018 as the 21-year CEO of leading real estate companies of the world, also known as Leading RE for many of you. Such a prestigious organization, the largest global residential network of 575 premier locally branded real estate brokerages, producing over 1.2 million transactions annually. I mean, Pam, that's so impressive. Her honors include being repeatedly named to the most influential in real estate list of Inman News, Swanpoll Power 200, and the National Association of Realtors, and being one of just six recipients of Worldwide ERC's Lifetime Achievement Award, which I think Chris Colley started. Is that right? Or I remember
It's named
Chris.
after him, yeah.
Yes, it's named after him. I remember meeting Chris. She has served on the Leading RE board of directors and the DocuSign advisory board as well, among many others. And I also found it interesting, Pam, that you also had a career in television, which is very similar to mine. I started in television as well. And so I think that is very interesting as our paths have kind of followed in the same direction. Of course, I wasn't the head of a big organization like yours. So Pam, I'm honored to have you on the show. So
Thank
welcome.
you, Teresa.
And Kathy, I know, is the one she's recommended you among many of the Relo leaders out there as well. And Vicky Silvano. Vicky is the broker associate with Real Broker and has over 30 years of experience in the real estate industry. And I met Vicky when she became the national chair and president of the Asian Real Estate Association of America, ARIA, in 2016. And our kind of overlapped. I was actually president from 2015 of March to March of 2016. And then Joe Neary, my really good friend in Chicago, became president. So there were two Chicago presidents running the organizations of ARIA and NARP at the same time. Under her leadership, she successfully spearheaded the No Other campaign. The campaign's success resulted in a historic win for the Asian American and Pacific Islander community, creating a distinct category for AAPI in the U.S. Census Bureau's quarterly homeownership report. That is unbelievable, Vicki. And we're going to talk a bit about this later on because that is a monumental change. In addition, Vicki has a long list of leadership roles at the local, state, and national level and currently serves as the NAR Global Ambassador to Malaysia, Philippines, and Singapore. Love that job. And is on the board of directors with Chicago Association of Realtors and also the National Association of Realtors. So welcome, Vicki, and welcome all of you to the show. I'm so excited that you are our trailblazers and leading off in January. And so the question that I always ask everyone, because I'm so interested and want to know, is how did you all get started in real estate? And, what was your role or is your role today? And what does it entail? And Vicki, I'm going to get started with you.
Well, thank you so much, Teresa. First, for having me here. I don't know if I can put myself as a trailblazer, but I'm following you as well. But talk about how I came about to real estate. As you know, I originally come from the Philippines, and I always say I came here for love. My husband went to the US to take his graduate studies. So I came here after 3 years to start our lives. I worked for 4 years at a top Chicago educational institution. And talk about DEI. There were only 5 of us in a department. And I have never felt included and had no chance of access to leadership role in that department at the time. So after 4 years of going with their flow of how they do their jobs and how we do our jobs in that department, I started looking for other opportunities. And I attended what was called a career night. And lo and behold, it was a real estate recruiting session. And I worked for Procter & Gamble in the Philippines before I came to the US. So I said, I think my marketing skills will align with real estate. And that's how I got started. And now my career path has also shifted in serving not only my clients and customers, but also the general membership. As you have said, I'm working or have worked with the Chicago Association of Realtors, state level and national, and now globally as well. So it's always by chance. And I've listened to some of your sessions, and I said a lot of us are by chance, So that's how I started my career.
Well, first of all, I think it's really impressive that people don't realize how big those career nights are, because I've talked to so many leaders that have started and they got their start when they went to a career night where they knew nothing about real estate and they thought, well, you know what, this sounds interesting. I'm going to go. And I don't think we do those as much anymore. I haven't seen those as much. So that's really exciting. So thank you, Vicki, for sharing your story. And I love that you came for love. Jan, how about you?
Well, my dad was the catalyst, I suppose. He and a business associate had what they referred to as a land bank, and they would buy up pieces of property, hang on to them. They saw the opportunities in Metro Atlanta, in the outskirts where we lived. And I watched this lady who they didn't particularly care for as a person, but she was, I suppose, a good real estate agent for them. And I watched her, what in my mind, as a school teacher, mind you, that I thought was a lot of money. And it was compared to my school teacher. I loved teaching school. I taught high school. I loved my seniors. But when my son came along, then we did not have a computer. We could go in and say, I have a sick child, or I'm sick, find somebody to take my class. You had to get on the phone and call and find somebody. And also lesson plans and things like that were to get to somebody when you have a baby is difficult.
Mm.
And I was senior class sponsor. I was majorette sponsor. I was the business manager for our musical every year. I taught at the college across the street, and I couldn't do any of that anymore with the baby. I needed to come home. So I went to my dad and I said, I think I'm going to get a real estate license. He said, I think that's a brilliant idea. So my mother-in-law kept my baby while I went to school because there was no online or anything then. And I went to school at night and got a real estate license because of that, and asked him and his partner if they would please let me do their next transaction. They did. And I made more money on that transaction than I had made in 3 months or so teaching school. So, but it wasn't all about money. I loved real estate from almost that very first night in class. But I do remember going to my first broker and I said, I don't care about this GRI stuff. I don't care about the $1 Million Club stuff. I just want to make enough money for Christmas presents and a nice family vacation for my children. Well, as you can tell, those were meaningless words, but I meant them when I said them. But once I got a taste of it, I just really could not give it up. And then once I got a taste of GRI and the networking and going to the Georgia Association of Realtors meetings and meeting all those really interesting people and cool people, and the things that we talked about were things I couldn't talk about at home. And friends I made, and I still have best friends that are like my sisters because I don't have sisters, realtors from across the state that we call ourselves the Yaya Sisters, and we get together and we go on trips and we get together. And the people I have met through real estate and the people I have met through serving at NAR and at GAR have made my life completely different.
And I love that. I love the way you got started. Many of our realtors come from teaching backgrounds. So I always talk about recruiting. You should go to schools and talk to teachers because they love to teach. And that's the process of how to buy real estate is a teaching process. You have to be able to be patient with people and teach how to do it. And Jan, is so true. The connections that you make through all the organizations. Pam, I know you as well have a group that you've met through your work, and that still has your strong sisterhood that you've developed. So tell me about how you got started. And Jan, thank you so much for sharing.
Well, as Vicki said earlier, a lot of this is very accidental. But when I graduated from college, women, even with a college degree, were either nurses or nuns or teachers or secretaries. And I definitely didn't qualify to be a nun or a nurse, and really wouldn't have had the talent to be a teacher like Jan was. So I was a secretary for WSB TV in Atlanta. So when you say I had a career in it, actually, I only worked there 2 years, but I worked for the head of promotion, who was an amazing woman, Jean Hendricks, who ran the largest 4th of July parade in the country. And so I would meet wonderful celebrities. I was her secretary, and I'd bring coffee to people like Burt Reynolds and Michael Caine. And it was an amazing job, and I loved it. But I also knew that if I stayed in that job, I just knew kind of instinctively that I would always be slotted in that job. And there's nothing wrong with being a secretary, but I wanted more than that. So a guy that I worked with had a friend who was with All Points Relocation, which is one of the very early real estate referral networks. And I got a job there as a junior communications manager. So, and that's really what started it. I just landed in a company that was related to real estate. So I worked there for about 6 years, got promoted along the way, and then had a new boss I didn't really like or respect. And so I went to, for a while, I went into working for a condo development company, doing condo conversions and marketing and PR. And then a recession hit, and then I started a PR firm with a very good friend of mine that I had worked with at WSB, and we were just taking off with that. We were actually starting to make some money when I was approached by my old board from All Points to be their CEO, and that's another whole story. But anyway, so it was very accidental how I ended up in this business. But when I was offered that position, I thought, do I want to write hardware store press releases the rest of my life, or do I want to get back into a business that I really loved? So that's kind of how it all started.
Oh, and I love it. And, each of you have shared that these were pivotal moments that changed your life and moving, and saying, hey, I got to get out of this to do this is a huge step. It's a scary step because you have a paycheck. And as most of us know, real estate's commission, right? You have to kill what you eat. So talk about a pivotal moment, right? That you or experience that really shaped your path and empowered you to become the leader that you have become today. And how would you help others, navigate through any challenges or setbacks that they also might see? And Pam, I'll start with you.
Okay, well, it's a good segue because what I was just telling you, there's a little more to that story. So when I got a call from one of our someone on the board of directors who I'd known from when I'd been at All Points before, and this was, let me think now, 6 years later, I guess, after I left, he called me and he said, "We want to hire you as our CEO." They had had an interim guy that they had let go, and I remember saying to him, "Porter, I'm so flattered, but you can do better than me. I don't know how to be a CEO. That's crazy. Go find somebody else." And I'll never forget what he said to me, and it was one of the best lessons I've ever had in my career. He said, "Pam, if we have faith in you, you need to have faith in yourself. We think you're the right person." And so that was, that was really the start of what then, I ended up being with another network that bought All Points Relo, and then that evolved into a new network, which was renamed later Leading Real Estate Companies of the World. So, and I'll just kind of, one other thing that sort of is another lesson along the way was when I was offered, Relo had bought All Points. I had moved to Chicago, and we were starting to get everything kind of organized. And I got a call one day from a name some of you may remember, Dick DeWolf, who had a large company in New England that was later bought by NRT. And he said, we wonder if you, and I was the CEO of Relo at the time, and he said, "Would you be interested in being our CEO for this new organization," which at that time was called Reliance. And I said, "Well, I'm honored, but that would be like walking across the street to the competition. I don't think I could do that." And he said, "Well, what if we put them together?" And that's what happened. So that group and
Wow.
Relo were merged. And so I became their CEO. And I remember asking him, I said, "Okay, I don't understand. You didn't even really interview me. You just called and pretty much offered that job to me. And you don't know me, and I don't really know." These were big names like Alan Tate and Rob Sipsey and some Ron Peltier, big names in the industry. And I said, "Well, I don't understand." And he said, "Well," he says, "You're right, we don't know you, but our relocation directors knew you, and they all said this is who you need to hire." So the lesson there is you never know what's going to come back to you. And I don't mean you do it for that reason, but you're, if you're good to people along the way, and they, then they adopt you and they take care of you. And that's what happens. So.
Gosh, I love that. I love both of those, lessons because they are so inspiring. People don't, having faith in yourself, because a lot of times you do think you're not good enough. And I love that story. Jan, how about you?
Well, this was a difficult question because there's so many pivotal moments in career when you have a 43-year career. I was talking to my accountability or my relationship partner this morning, which we have in our company, and I was telling her a personal story, which I will allude to in just a moment. But this one also, I think the pivotal moment, and once again, involves my dad. He and his business associate were able to get 1,100 acres from CNS Bank, if you remember CNS in Atlanta, Pam, I'm sure you do. And they had gotten into foreclosure, and it was just across the Fulton County line, which Fulton County, as Pam, Vicki, it's Metro Atlanta, into a little county that nobody had heard of, but now it's one of the fastest growing in the United States, Cherokee County. And it was 1 mile over the line, and it was 1,100 acres. And I had to go through the zoning and all the things, and we developed it. He said, "We're going to develop this one, and you're going to market it." Well, first of all, I've been a school teacher, as I said. I didn't know anything about development or marketing, but I thought, I'm a smart girl. I can learn. I grew up with 4 brothers. I can learn. So we did that, and we developed this into 5-acre tracts. And he said, okay, and we're going to build 4 spec houses with 4 different styles. You find us a builder that you trust,
Wow.
and I want you to move into one of them, sell your house in Gwinnett County, move into one of them,
Wow.
be on site. I mean, this was a big thing. I had a 3-year-old and a 2-month-old. And I moved my family to Cherokee County. I found a builder that we worked fabulously with. We sold those houses. I built my own house up there. And I did that. I got my broker's license, obviously, so I could have my own company there. And that is called Mitchell Farms. I was a Mitchell. Mitchell Farms was the thing that set me off. And I won't say made me famous. I'm not famous. I'm not being
But it put
bragging.
your name on the map.
It put that area on the map. And
That's
Mitchell Farms became, because the houses were beautiful. Nothing else was like that up there. And then I was fortunate enough, Pam, I think you would probably know about this too, in relocation. There were no relocation agents up there, and Georgia Pacific moved their big company and all their people up to around that area. And a lot of them came from Kansas, and they loved the land up there. And so I got the Georgia Pacific account. I never had a relocation account. I never had a relocation client in my life. And now it's such a, all of our trainings, and that's what Teresa did. And it's a whole different piece of our business. But I just sold them houses.
That is
And
unbelievable.
it is. And I was lucky that happened. I was fortunate.
Well, it's not luck.
Like,
I think one of the things, it's God winks, right? He's giving that, I'm a believer of that. He's blinking at you, and you had the tenacity, the capability, and the foresight to say, okay, I can do this. It's new to me. I don't know what I'm doing, but that's what we want to share with our audience. All of you have this capability. It's inside of you if you just pursue it. And Jan, you pursued it. And I love that you did that. And you did. You became one of the most well-known people in the county, an account builder, because of that one scenario that made you have to move your cheese. So, as the book says,
yes,
Vicki,
I moved my keys. And I guess being the only daughter of 4 brothers, and I was telling my accountability partner something, and I won't go into the whole story because I don't want to take about everybody else's time. But when I was 16, my parents went to Hawaii. They would go to Vegas and be a long weekend, but Hawaii, it's 2 weeks, especially back in those days. And with the 4 brothers, the person who helped my mother in the house would, of course, spent the night, and she was there as an adult, but I was responsible for swim practice, and because it was in the summer and all that. And one of my middle brothers was a troublemaker. So when they left, I started researching, and I found a camp.
Did you send them to it?
I did. I went to the doctor's office, and I got the thing I was smart enough to go into the doctor's office from the nurse there, get the medical thing. I went to the local Treasure Island, which is the Target now, and I bought the right sheets. I went down that checklist, toothbrush, everything. I put him on that bus, and the people there said, "Oh, where's your mother?" And I said, "She's out of town." I didn't lie. I never lied once.
How old were you?
I never lied once. And so,
Jan, how old were you then?
I was barely 16. I
Wow.
had not had my license for a long time. And so I knew what time they were going to call every day, because, why is 5 hours difference and only landlines. So I made sure that who answered the telephone, and I never lied to them either. I gave them a report on what was going on in the household and what was happening. And I picked him up a few days before they got home, and had a little talk with him about how it was unnecessary to discuss camp with Mother and Daddy. That he could just talk about things that we did. And, we didn't tell them for a long time. And finally, I decided I better come clean just in case, somebody said something. I think that's what my dad, I think that was the movement. That may have been the pivotal movement, that my dad said, well, she can do anything. So
I love that. I love that that you took initiative and said, "Hey, you're not
And
going to cause a
I
nightmare
did.
for me this weekend."
And
These
I
two,
have a strategy.
yeah, I love it. That's great. Vicky, how about you?
Yeah, a lot of pivotal moments all the time in our lives, right? But the pivotal moments really come about when people tap you on the shoulder. So I peop, I've had a lot of people tap me on the shoulder. And Jim Park,
Which we all love. Jim, shout out to you,
oh,
buddy.
see, and that's when the pivotal moment comes about, right? When I became the chap, I went through the ranks like everybody else in ARIA, and in 2016 I became the national president, and that's really the pivotal moment of my life. Sounds like in 2016 sounds like a lifetime ago, right? But ARIA has opened a lot of doors of opportunities to the different paths of leadership for me, as well as to serve my API community, right? Arya was only 13 years young at the time, and we were at the cusp of making initiatives and making things happen for ourselves and for the organization. And when I took office, there were only about 25 to 26 chapters. And now we just celebrated our 20th anniversary here in Chicago.
Was
And
there?
we grew, yeah, you were there. And we grew to 45 chapters and 18,000 members. And when I took office, my goal was to improve the processes of the organization, to grow its our memberships, right? And to collaborate with a lot of the different partners so that we can grow in the industry. I was so excited about this role, but as I got into it, I didn't realize the different personalities of the different chapter leaders to deal with. As you know, like NAREP, right? Our organizations are very similar and very aligned. There's a lot of different mindsets of leaders, right? Some are true to their calling and some are not, or have different agendas taking that role. And when we are advocating for eliminating barriers to homeownership for our community, we don't have time for petty ideals and petty people. Again, luckily, I have ARIA mentors like Jim Park and Hope Atwell, and they gave me strength to move past these petty people and petty situations. So I think the pivotal moment really is when I took over the reins of ARIA, and that gave me a lot of roles that I'm having now, and hopefully I'm able to control or take over and be responsible for all the different, and look at the bigger picture, look at the greater good, right? Not just this set of people who keeps being noisy, just to be noisy. So yeah, so just like Pam has said, sometimes you don't really think of yourself as being able to tackle that role, but give yourself that grace and strength, and we know we can do it. So
And it's so
that's,
true that minutia of people and the drama that happens
yeah, the
in
drama.
every single chapter or organization, it's part of life. It is part
Yeah,
of life. And if we can become a bigger thinker, that's where we make the impact. And to that said, we're going through some difficult times right now.
yeah,
It's a really difficult time in our industry for many reasons. There's a lot of change happening. There's a lot of drama. And so I want to find out from you, and keep this short because we want to make sure we cover as much as we can. We've all faced challenges. We've all seen changes in our industry, and how can we overcome these obstacles and come out ahead during these changing times? Anyone that wants to answer that, what would you recommend people do? And again, Pam, I'll start with you.
Well, I do think there is kind of an assault on our industry right now. And I don't mean to be a conspiracy theorist, but I really do think there are entities out there that are trying to damage the business. But I feel like we have a responsibility in this. And I think we have done overall a lousy job of educating the public of what real estate people actually do. And I've never been an agent. I've had a license for many, many years, but I totally respect the work that brokers and agents do every day. And when, I was so frustrated with the recent lawsuit, and I know we can't, there's all these
Yes.
prohibitions on talking about it, but the reality is nobody did a good job of defending that. There was never the story told of you've got all of these independent business owners that they're not a big kahuna. They're entrepreneurs, and what they do for what, all of the things in the background that people don't understand, and also the way the compensation works, all of these arguments about, commissions are too high. Well, if you go into a furniture store and you buy a sofa, you don't assume that that entire price of the sofa goes to the salesman. And yet that's what people think in this business. And shame on us for not enlightening them and letting them understand how it all gets divided up. Because when you do that and you do the math for consumers, they start realizing, wow, they make less than I do. It's not crazy, so I think, I guess if there's one thing I think we need to really focus on right now, individually, it's just telling people, don't hide it. Don't say, oh, I can't talk about that. Say, here's what's happened. And here's really, I think, a misunderstanding in the business about how things operate and why the MLS is a good thing, and why it really helps buyers and sellers and all of those things. So not to get into the details of it, but I just feel a lot of this is communication that we haven't done very well as an industry.
No truer words could be said. I think that is spot on. And I think it is our role to educate and to also make sure people understand the impact that we have in our own roles in helping minorities and underserved and those first time buyers and millennials get into home ownership, and the work that we do and how pivotal it is. And I'll go to you, Vicki, because I know with that is why that's why I got into real estate. That's what I love about helping our community.
Yeah. So now more than ever, I think realtors, as Pam has said, has not done a good job in explaining what we do from A to Z, right? So, but at the same time, real estate has been very fast moving in the last 2 years. So it was like a momentum based era of real estate where we can't even breathe. Transactions are happening, every single day. But at this point, I think now is the time to really showcase our clients that this is now a skills-based, knowledge-based type of doing business, right? Those skilled people are the ones who's going to lead the pack. And it's you gotta learn and don't stop learning. You gotta be evolving with the times. Your skills, the value that you give to your clients is what will make you get the business out there. Okay, so it's now time to show value on what you do and how you do things. Another change that I see in our industry, just to tech is AI, artificial intelligence, right? So AI, I don't think AI will replace us, right? Because we are all in sales. People need face-to-face communications or daily communications, but it's a powerful tool. We need to know how it helps us in our business, right? So do not stop learning. These are the key pivots that we need to do in this ever-changing market, and client behaviors that we need to deal with. So I think, giving value to your clients is really something that you need to do, and within this ever-changing, industry that we're in.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's really important, those education, and also making sure that we give the value, we are able to communicate the value and what we bring to the table, and really being the very best so that we can provide that service, the very best service. Jan, last quickly comment on that.
Well, I totally agree with Pam and Vicki, and anything that I could add to it would just be taking up time for new things. The educating the public, educating our members, first of all, and we can do all the PR projects in the world with the the extra money that we pay for PR. But it's got to be boots on the ground. It's got to be us in our communities communicating. And we've got to be willing to make changes. We've got to be open-minded about the changes. And we can't listen to the rumble around us. We have to research it. We have to know. We have to be educated ourselves, in other words. We have to always be present with what's going on in the industry that we have been so proud of and worked so hard for all these years.
I love that. Ignore that noise, right? That negative noise, and be a positive changer. Jane, you have, like we said it in the very onset, you are very selfless, and you've actually helped so many others in their careers in real estate. And what is it that made you that way? Number one, we heard your story, but what would you recommend for others do in order to help advance careers and shape the identity of leaders today?
Well, using you as an example, and this is a perfect example of you have to listen to what others say. I don't mean hear them while you're thinking about how you're going to answer. I mean, listen to them and their story, and always make the right choice where anybody else is going to know about it or not. If you always, that's the expression, dance like nobody's looking, make that right choice. And when Teresa came to me, her neighbors, she was a new agent, she just moved to Georgia. Her neighbors were owners of a major company. And I had met them through the real estate, through our local board, and become friends with them. And they told her, we don't train. If you want to really get trained, then you need to call Jan Baker, which was how it all started. She did. She came and she visited and she told me her story. And I listened. And as I sat there, I had like the one angel on this shoulder, another one on this shoulder, because I knew that she was going to be successful. And I knew that if she came into my office the way we would train her and the resources, that she would be successful and she would be a top producer. Therefore, my office would be more profitable. I knew that. But I had just heard, and this is before Indeed or anything digitally, and like you said, Vicki, especially before Chat GPT, this was before any of that. So if you had a job or a position or an opening, you had to go into a magazine or word of mouth. And so we were starting something in our relocation company called, our relocation department called, I believe it was Home Benefits Plus. And after Teresa had told me what she did in Louisiana, I mean, she was out there asking for funds from the alumni. How hard is that? So this Home Benefits Plus was to reach out to companies that didn't relocate people, but they were local companies, but the people that worked there did move around and they had jobs. So as she talked and as I listened, I thought, no, I can't keep this from her. She's got to go meet with Kathy Conley at our relocation department. And I told her about the position. Of course, we had to use the landline on my desk to call Kathy to get an appointment. But we did. She got an appointment. But what I did not know, because she didn't tell me this, and I can't read minds, her sister worked for the governor. So when she left, she called her sister and said, I know nothing about demographics and economics in the state of Georgia. Can you get me some stats before tomorrow? Or whenever the next day, or I believe it was just one day. And her sister got all of this information from the governor's department. So Teresa went in to that interview knowing more than any other person would have known about people moving around in Georgia, who was coming to Georgia, what companies had this many people, where they were, what companies were planning on a move or opening up a new plant. And I think our first client was actually an EMC company. And she had found out about them from the governor's office.
Yeah, it was amazing, the trajectory of opportunities that came. Like I said, by chance to me. I was very lucky and when I interviewed for that role to land it. And I really attribute Kathy, Jan and Kathy, for giving me the opportunity and plus leading to where I am today. Is all these people that help you build that career that really help you, like you were saying, Jim Park, and the Outpoints individual that met with you. It's really those people that kind of take you to that next level. And so now moving on to personal situations. I know, Vicki, thank you, Jan, for that opportunity. I'll never forget it. Vicki, I know one of the biggest things that you did was the No Other campaign. We're going to touch about that because that was really huge. And I know it had to take a lot of steps. Why was that important for the AAPI community as a whole, and for you to change the trajectory in the census? Because that, again, I can't believe y'all did that. That was huge.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that up because that's really, really very historic for us. So in the U.S. Census Bureau homeownership quarterly reports, there are only 3 categories, and the 4th category is other. So the categories were whites, blacks, Hispanics, and then other. So we were all lumped into other category, which means that you're not counted, you're not represented, there's no data about you. And so when we knew about this situation, we gathered everybody, all of our chapter leaders. We told everybody to raise our voices, do events, and do an outreach because this is not right, right? The Asian American community contributes about over $1 trillion in economics, in purchasing power. There's 2/3 of AAPI are business owners. So the contribution in the economy is just there. Homeownership at the time when I was the president was about 52%. And there's still that gap that we needed to do so that we know that we're helping our community. So when we did all this research and we told all our chapters, raise your voices. We need to make sure that the U.S. Census Bureau really puts us in a separate standalone category. So we met with the U.S. Census Bureau director at the time, Mr. Thompson. We met with Congressman Honda and Congressman Judy Chu were really with us during this campaign. And, with all this hard work that we did, I'm not contributing myself to this as by myself because it's not going to happen with all the people around me, the people that surround me, the people who was, supported the organization and the government officials that really see the importance of why we need to be counted. So in July 2016, U.S. Census Bureau put that category into AAPI category. So now we have a standalone category, and now we're counted, and now we have representation. And more recently, because it was in 2016, there was now a 5-year data that can be used. And this was used by Lawrence Yun, our NAR economist, in his studies, that now this AAPI segment has this types of data. And now, when you don't have a data that the government can then there's no services that can be given to you, and so that was pretty historic. And to this day, our ARIA members call me Miss No Other.
I still remember the t-shirts. They were beautiful.
Yes.
And they said they had the blocks, other, like no other. And so I think just even the PR that y'all did was phenomenal. And it was really life-changing because it has changed the course of the data to be counted for that AAPI community, which is so critical. So Vicki, again, huge kudos, because that was a huge event that happened during
up to now. A lot of us are still using the No Other campaign.
I love it. I do. I see.
Maybe I should give you one.
I want one.
Yes, we will.
All right, Pam. Moving to you, I know that you led one of the most prestigious, well-known organizations, but you had a lot of egos and people that you had to work with to collaborate because they're competitors and fierce competitors amongst many of them. And so how were you able to work with such fierceness and be able to collaborate with all of those individuals? What do you have to possess so that you can accomplish so much?
Well, I don't know that it's so much what you have to possess as what you have to do, and that in 2 words is you've got to create value. And when our organization was started, even before I got there, it was really a walkout of a lot of the large real estate brokerages leaving the old PHH, home equity, Cendent, whatever it was called at the time. And they got a lot of business from that organization, but it was a love-hate relationship, and they finally left just out of frustration. So those guys, and these were all independent real estate companies, and as Teresa said, in many markets we had direct competitors. So they were locally branded companies and very, very independent, very entrepreneurial. And these were names, that you all would recognize, who were telling me, okay, we're going to be the best referral organization. And to this day, that is still a big part of Leading RE's value proposition, because members make, in many cases, more money from the referral business than they pay for fees. However, I saw something that I thought, not just me, but our team thought it could be more than that. And we sort of envisioned it as being the unfranchised, in the sense that we would offer a lot of the same things as a franchise organization, but still allow people to have their local brands. And that's what we set about doing. And I think the creating value part of it is continuing to do what your mission is, directed by your board, which we did. But at the same time, what else can we explore? And so we created Luxury Portfolio in the luxury space when Sotheby's was licensed and became a franchise. We went global before really anybody else, I think, in terms of really being in those markets and knowing those members firsthand, and that has been a huge win for the organization. Creating institute, this educational thing. So I think, and this is on an individual level too, I am a big opponent of victimization. I know there's a lot of that happens in this world, but I don't think dwelling on it helps any of us. And my feeling is, we all had tough situations. My dad died when I was 12 unexpectedly. My 37-year-old mother raised 3 kids without a lot of money. We've all been there, no matter what our situations are. But to dwell on that doesn't get you forward. So I think you've got to always be thinking, how can I personally add value, instead of I don't make enough money, or I should have gotten that job and I didn't get that job. Hold your hand up and offer to take on a new project. And as I think Jan said earlier, it's about leaning in. It's about not assuming that, men tend to think, oh, I'll take that job. I can do it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out. Women don't do that. We feel like we've got to be perfect. And so I guess the lesson that I learned individually, but also in the company, was the more you add value, the more people will come along because they're benefiting from it. So it's just that simple.
Yeah, The Giver, I think that book is an amazing example of when you give, and worry, all of you, like, you're giving, that it's going to come back to you, right? And people will take care of you, and then you'll advance. I think it's so, so true. Pam, now we're halfway, almost getting done with our time. And I want to hit on a couple things that I think, especially since it's mentorship month, I do want to talk about mentorship, because I think it plays, or even sponsorship, because I think it needs to go beyond just mentoring someone. How have you mentored others, and, who do you seek for mentorship? And for those who don't have access, because not all of us have access to mentors or the capability of asking someone, hey, will you mentor me? Because sometimes that is hard for leaders that are very busy to mentor others. What would you recommend? And so, Jane, I'll start with you.
First of all, I think that you can get inspiration from people without them being your mentor, because people have this idea of a mentor as someone you
Meet
are
with.
with a lot, and they're with you. But I think getting inspiration is very, very important. Currently, my inspiration comes from 3 people, and I'll be short. Tonya Sellers, who is probably one of the most brilliant legal minds in the country, maybe the world. Tonya has this gift of always smiling, literally always smiling. And she can explain things. She grew up on dairy farm in Alabama. So she can explain the most complicated legal issue quickly so that anybody can understand it. She has a gift. Now, she could stand up in front of the Supreme Court and use all those legal words too, but she has a gift. She inspires me every time I want to, with everything that's been going in our industry. She inspires me to look at it the way she looks at it. And then there's Kathy Conley, who is a good friend of Pam's, but Kathy is one of these people that I don't know how she does everything she does. She's won every global relocation award you could win. She won one this year that only 1% of people win. But I am here to witness that she is the most responsive person I have ever worked with or been a friendship with. She returns her calls, emails, and she also has this gift of knowing almost when you need something. She inspires me to, once again, smile while you're doing it. Think about before you speak, think what you're saying, be very diplomatic, but be responsive, communicate. The other one, of course, is Deanne Golden, our CEO. And when I say brilliant, she's brilliant. And I don't know when she sleeps either, 7 kids and everything she does all over the world. She could be on TV and do a wonderful interview with 5 minutes of preparation and use words that I'd have to Google to figure what they mean.
Yeah, she's got Al Dalton's, dictionary.
Yeah, right. But I have to mention my longtime inspiration and mentor is Tony McGowan, who is our retired, and Teresa's probably too, who is our retired senior vice president, executive vice president. She made it through 2 presidents and CEOs, being the still of Magnolia, advising them and saying, hey, wait a minute, let's think about this. We can do it this way. She's tough.
She is. First of all, you touched my heart and made me cry. I've got tears because every one of those individuals are the people that I've also consider to be phenomenal mentors, and I look up to them. It's very, very much so. Pam, how about you?
Well, I think the mentorship thing is, as Jan was sort of alluding, is it doesn't mean you have to meet with somebody on a regular basis and all that. Here's what I would say. I think people have an innate desire to be asked for help. Think about it. When somebody comes to you and says, Vicki, what do you think about, I'd like your opinion on something. You're flattered by that. You're honored by that. So I would say, if there are people you respect and you model yourself after, just say, do you have time for a cup of coffee? Could I pick your brain about a few things? And do that with different people and learn from them. Take notes. Used to drive me crazy. Somebody would want to do that and they'd come in and they'd sit there and never take a note. I'm thinking, are you paying attention? So, but I think that's it. And as far as just the people, I think Kathy is part of a group that I have we call ourselves the Birthday Summit. We've been friends for over 30 years. And these are women that all worked in the business in different cities, were many of them part of my network at one time or another. And I've learned so much from them, but everybody that I've touched in this business, I've learned from. So just keep your ears open. It doesn't have to be necessarily a one-on-one, but when you ask for help, they'll remember you, and you never know when they'll be in a position to help you. And the last thing I would say on this is not just other women. I believe in my girlfriends more than anybody, and I have more than anybody. I'll challenge it. But I will say this, some of my good friends are also men who have really helped me in the business. And if you go through the world, resenting men and so that they have to walk on landmines around you, you're hurting yourself, because at the end of the day, like it or not, they're still in position to hand out the good jobs in many cases. And I think there are a lot of good guys out there who will help you if you ask for help.
Oh, great advice. Great advice. Vicki?
Yes, as everybody has said, I have a few people who's really opened doors for me. Nancy Supernomini is the first Asian American, you know her. She's a strong leader. She's the first Asian American president of the Chicago Association of Realtors. I've said Jim Park, Hope Atwell, Elizabeth Mendenhall. She was the 2018 NAR president. She tapped me on my shoulder. When she called me, I thought I was being called by Hillary Clinton. I thought she didn't know who I am because I was like, I thought I was invisible to her. But when she called me to be appointed as the global liaison at the time, of course I said yes, right? Because who wouldn't? So this people has really opened the doors for me and saw the potential in me. And I say that, your network is your net worth, right?
Oh,
So you surround yourself with people that are better than you or that you can learn from. I think those are the ways to start your being better at yourself, being a better you, right? And so surrounding yourself with people that allows you to be you, and they see how you work, right? They see how sincere and hardworking you are, and you see through who the people are working and who are not, right?
so
Or who's
true.
got different agenda, as I said earlier. So yeah, those people are the ones that I look up to as well.
And I think I love that phrase. Your network is your net
Yes.
worth.
Yeah, I'm totally stealing that, Vicky.
Oh
Me
my
too.
God, I love that. That's
I saw that
fabulous.
for somebody else too.
Me
So.
too.
Oh, I love it. All right, we're done. We last question because we're running out of time. What is your favorite quote, book, or advice that resonates with you that you want to share with our audience? Jan, I'll start with you.
You're not better than anybody, but you're as good as anybody.
Ah, wonderful. I love that. That's something that a lot of people need to think about because it really does make an impact on the way you're, 'cause sometimes you get too big and oh, you got to remember that. I love that. Vicky, how about you?
I'll be a little bit spiritual. So I say I'd say she rather than he, right? She who humbles herself shall be exalted, and who exalts herself shall be humbled. So humbleness doesn't mean that you're going to be subdued and quiet, but humbleness means that you got to be grounded as you go through life, as you have all those accolades from different organizations, and just be grounded and know who you are.
Oh, great. Two very similar. Pam, how about you?
I'm going to take a little license and do two, and I'll be quick. One of them is the first woman president of any country in the world was Iceland, and I can't even pronounce her name, but I'm half Icelandic. And she said, "I think if the world can be saved, it will be by women." I love that one. And the other one that I love from Margaret Thatcher is the woman's mission is not to enhance the masculine spirit, but to express the feminine. Hers is not to preserve a man-made world, but to create a human world. And I've always just loved that.
Oh, I've not heard that one. I think that's awesome. These are great quotes, which we will share with our audiences and we'll write them down so people can know about it. And then if you have any favorite books, let me know and then we'll also share those. So thank you so much for kicking off our year in such great fashion. I found this quote, which I think really is so apropos in describing all of you. The task of the leader is to get their people from where they are to where they have not been, right? From where they are to where they've not been. And that's by Henry Kissinger. It really resonates with mentorship and leadership because you're getting people to where they need to be. And you've all done such an incredible job in helping others and motivating and inspiring. So thank you again for spending the time with me and our audience. I'm in awe of all of your accomplishments. I am a big, all of you, right? I really enjoyed our cafecito together. And I want to invite all of you out there to join us again right here on February 14th. That's Valentine's Day, as we zoom in on another great team of leaders. And a reminder for all of you who have not done so, join our Facebook page. Share our episodes. They're archived on this channel and also like our YouTube channel. And as I close, the time is now. Remember in 2024, lead with courage, lead with passion, lead with your authentic you. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks again.